The song says, "Till everyone is home." That needs to be our aspiration. It's easy to lose track of that in our financialized lives that tell us home is an asset, and housing scarcity makes it more valuable. In my conversations about housing, I find there are two ideas in tension: housing as a human right and housing as an investment. Let's think about home and why having one might be a human right. At my age, I spend time visiting doctors. You probably know the drill. Exam room, and then the nurse comes in to ask questions. On one such visit, the nurse had a novel question. Will you be safe when you go home today? Wow. Will you be safe when you go home today? The question highlighted an idea I had not considered, that my home might not be safe. I have found myself remembering that question as I tuck into bed. I am warm, dry, fed, and safe. Till everyone is home and safe. The challenge of talking about housing is it exists on a spectrum. At one end is homelessness. At the other end is a McMansion with a large mortgage. The housing affordability challenge exists in different ways all across that range, and we need to find the right solutions at each point in the spectrum. When I was first hired by the Trust, Steve Bonner provided me an office at Sojourners. It was a brilliant introduction to the issues of housing and homelessness. I learned that losing your home is a huge catastrophe. You lose everything that won't fit in your car. You lose your bed, your kitchen utensils, your food, your books, your personal effects. Tomorrow, I will volunteer with the Idaho Food Bank for their monthly mobile food pantry. We hand out canned goods, fresh fruits and vegetables, starches and proteins. Anyone on the spectrum of housing need can drive up and have their trunk filled. I do this because I believe hunger is a housing problem. Losing housing is so catastrophic, you need to prioritize paying rent. If you are at risk of not making rent, you might skimp on food because losing your housing is more significant than a growling stomach. Till everyone is home and safe and fed. The other thing I've learned in 12 years with the Trust is that everyone has a story. They got ahead or fell behind for all kinds of reasons. One of those ways of falling behind is having the wrong housing. Think back to the Syringa trailer park. The sewer and water infrastructure failed. People had a hard time leaving because residents could not afford to fix their housing. Till everyone is in the right home and safe and fed. So what is affordable housing? Everyone uses the word affordable. It will help us if we can have an agreement about what it might mean. Back in the Depression, when the FHA was created, they decided that affordable housing should cost no more than 30% of your gross income. I'll let you start doing the math in your head here to figure out how you're doing in that score. The shopping basket of household needs has changed in 90 years. With those changes, the affordable definition has moved up a pinch. Lenders now often use 35%. There are many in our community whose housing is not affordable by that definition. The term is housing cost burdened. There are people paying over 50% of their gross income on housing. If your housing is affordable, you have money to spend on food and health care and the occasional night on the town. A friend of mine says, housing is where jobs go to sleep at night. And then he launches into wanting a $4 latte and also wanting his barista to have a home. We need affordable housing in our community so that our baristas and the others who provide us services can live where they work. Housing is where jobs go to sleep at night. If you want workers, your community needs housing at the right price. Affordable housing is economic development. You can help. This January, my housing trust got a $1.2 million grant from the Washington Department of Commerce to build 8 new affordable houses in Pullman. We close on the land for that project later this month and hope to have houses on the market a year from now. Summer thoughtfully inserted more information into your program. There are many challenges that go along with this opportunity. I need your help on one. In addition to the grant, the trust will have considerable borrowed money in the project. My concern is to get the houses sold quickly, so we are not paying interest on unsold homes, which means we need 8 buyers lined up. The challenge is our buyers do not know they can buy a house. They have seen market prices. They are not looking. So I need your help finding our buyers and encouraging them. I'm sure you know the person I'm looking for here in our church, your employee or coworker, someone you know professionally. Pull them aside. Share how homeownership has been good for you. Maybe even how ownership expresses your inner plum bean. You do not need to be an expert in the details. The trust is partnering with organizations to provide professional guidance about credit, debt, and all the other details. Not realtors, neutral third parties who can be guides and financial coaches for the next year, getting the family ready. When you think you found the right person, reach out to me. 2 years ago, the book Escaping the Housing Trap was published by a group called Strong Towns. The book has 3 sections. One section looks at how lending got us here, financializing housing. Another looks at zoning and what it did and still does to limit our communities. The third section is the most important: proposals for things that communities can do. In today's story, Mr. Plumbean lives on a neat street where all the houses are the same. Mr. Plumbean Street might have been shaped by our current lending and zoning to facilitate the bundling of mortgages into financial instruments. And then in the story, a seagull drops orange paint on Mr. Plumbean's house. It changed Mr. Plumbean's neat street. As we travel through our lives, from time to time, fate drops something good or bad onto us. And when that happens, often our housing needs change. Mr. Plumbean changed his housing. My house is me, and I am it. Plumbean's story is one of self-discovery via housing. It is also the story of neighbors who first resisted and then savored, making their home fit their dreams. The third section of the Escaping book focuses on what cities can do to encourage individuals as small-scale housing developers. It looks at how we built housing 100 years ago, before zoning. You can see the remnants of that in the older parts of Moscow. Neighborhoods were not built all at once to a finished state. Housing was built plum bean style, to fit the owner. A small house might get additions as the family and budget grew. A bigger, fancier house might be on a prominent intersection. There might be someone living over the garage or a boarder renting a room. There were duplexes mixed in among single-family homes. Take a walk around the older portions of Moscow here, near the church. Uh-oh, shouldn't take my hand off the... There we go. And look at the new, and then go look at our newer neighborhoods. Zoning and finance have made them homogeneous. We build neat streets because that's how the money works. Escaping the housing trap suggests that housing solutions we need can be found by looking at the past. Here is one example. You may have heard the term accessory dwelling unit. The idea is a small additional housing unit on your property, an idea that was not allowed by Moscow zoning until 2010. An ADU might be where you bring an aging family member to have them close, or it might be where someone who helps you can live next door. It could be the home that lets somebody get back on their feet, or a place for you to downsize. Now I'm going to say two words that I never thought I would put into the same sentence. Idaho legislature and liberalize. This year, the Idaho legislature passed several laws that liberalize the Moscow zoning code. Among other things, they made it easier for you to build an ADU. Plumbean and his neighbors changed their houses to fit their dreams. And as a community, we can change our housing too. For me, home is a place where people can thrive. You can't thrive if you're not in the right house, not safe, and not eating well. I want to encourage you to get the Housing Trap book, and within its pages, find your own inner plumbean. Make your house fit you. And accept that your plumbean neighbors are doing the same, even if it makes your house, or your street, a little less neat. Please join me in the challenge of creating housing till everyone is home.
Thank you, Nils. So we both had a lot to say on this topic today, so it's double homily Sunday. Sorry if it runs just a tiny bit long, but I could read at 1.5 speed if you like. 1.2, got it. Okay, here we go. No. So home. This is one of those ideas that I think is universally meaningful, and yet that particular meaning is specific to each and every one of us. Not surprisingly, I found out while researching for this sermon that there are hundreds of songs and poems and quotes all about the meaning of home. And so now I think the best approach is to just go through them one by one until we find the one correct answer. So, let's begin. Just kidding, of course. We each know what home means, at least for ourselves. So let's do a little bit of free association. So when you hear the word home, what's the next word, the next thought that comes to mind? Go ahead, call it out. Pets, family, safety. Yeah. So, I mean, you guys get it. You know what the meaning of home is. When I signed up to do this service, I initially planned to talk about my own struggles with the Moscow housing market and how the economics of housing have threatened to take us away from our Moscow home on a couple of different occasions. However, I think Nils covered that topic of housing affordability pretty well. And if you do want to hear me whine about my own personal situation, find me after service. No, instead today I want to talk about home in sort of the broader sense as a place of belonging, the place where our lives happen. And much of the time, not even so much a place as an idea or a memory or a hope. So one of my very earliest first memories was actually watching my first childhood home engulfed in flames. I was about 2 years old, and I remember sitting in the dust and crying while the grown-ups ran around with all their hoses and buckets and tools, trying unsuccessfully to tame that conflagration. But even after my house was gone, my home remained. I still had my family, and I had my pets, and I had my friends, and we actually got to stay on the same piece of land with all my secret haunts and hideouts. So I still belonged, and I still felt safe, and it was sad, but I was at home. It was when my brother died and my second childhood home burned down at age 9 that I first felt homeless. Now, I was never unhoused, but I never took to our new house. Even years later, it felt about as homey and familiar as a hotel room. So home stopped being a place and became more of a longing at that point, kind of like a phantom limb. And I know what you're thinking. Christ, Ryan, don't you have any stories that aren't super sad? No, I don't. Deal with it. Nah, I'm joking, I'm kidding. It's just a story has to get sad first for the happy ending to have any meaning. So after that fire, I spent my youth dreaming of one day getting rich so I could buy back my old house, rebuild everything it was, get back to life the way it was supposed to be. This was obviously a pretty naive dream. Like Thomas Wolfe once wrote, "You can't go home again." But it was a dream that kept me going, at least. I didn't find a true sense of home again until I met my wife, Brandy. Finally, I again had someone to return to, and a place where I felt wanted. I wrote in my wedding vows that "you are my home now," and when I shared that sentiment with our minister, he decided we could dispense with the traditional vows. Even when Brandy and I later moved clear across that big Pacific Ocean to Japan, I was still at home. I had her by my side. See, not all my stories are sad. But now it's time for another sad one. So while we were in Japan, in our Japan home, we decided to start growing our family, and in due time, Brandy did become pregnant. And in due time, we had our first miscarriage. And for a while, it really felt like home was maybe back on the other side of the Pacific. Our family and friends could only send consolation gifts and loving messages. We were kind of on our own. The one that I remember best was from a college friend, Nick, who sent us the song "Home" by Edward Sharpe and the Magnetic Zeros. And we'll play that whole song at the end of service as we're going to coffee hour. But the chorus sings, "Oh, home, let me come home. Home is wherever I'm with you." And that sentiment, that music, we cried through that song many times. Eventually, we did have our first child in Japan. We brought little Aurora back stateside to meet our families and friends, and then made our way back up here to Moscow, which has been our home ever since. And we had a second child, and our home grew. And we found our way into this community, and our home really grew. So maybe you can go home again, just not the one you left behind. Not everyone is this fortunate, though. While our nation certainly faces a housing crisis like Nils talked about, I think we're facing a homing crisis as well. Instead of staying put and forming ties and investing in the places we live, many Americans are forever on the move in search of something better that they might just find if they could, sit still a while. The result is that our nation is more fragmented, more rootless, and more neglected. Even when we do stay in one place, the faceless sprawl and big box stores, those cookie-cutter housing developments and neat streets that define modern development, they create a vast sense of anonymity. If Americans have stopped caring about one another, this sense of placelessness probably has something to do with it. How can we have a functional society when we don't even know our neighbors? How can we be expected to fight for a place that feels like no place in particular? When people talk about making America great again, you can almost feel the longing for a lost sense of place, identity, and belonging, for a home. There are many ways we might fight for the soul of our country, but to truly heal our divisions, we have to figure out how to make America feel like a home again. A home we share and one that we build together. A home that can hold all our varied dreams and desires, because only when we have a sense of shared destiny and a place worth caring about will we have the incentive to work for a common good. As long as we see our nation primarily as an economic arrangement, we'll continue fighting to get the biggest piece of the pie we can. Only when we see it as a shared home will we invest in making it better for everyone here now and for everyone yet to come. So what's the meaning of home? Home is the place where we matter. Home is the starting point of every adventure. And it's the promise of a place to return to that gives meaning to our journey. Home is a thing made of memory and love and sorrow, a place we long to be even when we're there. Home is something worth fighting for, and home is the place that grows from love.